Welcome to the second episode of Women in the New Testament, taught by the rabbi who doesn't really know all that much about the New Testament, but likes to think he knows more than other rabbis, which is how we got here, I think. Not more than other rabbis, period. More than other rabbis do in the New Testament. Sorry, I had to finish that sentence there. But it's also a natural progression from what we did with women in the Apocryphal literature. And what you've been doing, you folks have been doing with other teachers in women, biblical women in general. And I guess the important thing is to realize here is how much we don't know. So we can read different parts of Scripture. I don't think that we're talking about historicity here, what actually happened. In the church world, there's a lot of talk about the historical Jesus. In the religious church world, I don't mean necessarily the only academic world, the historical Jesus, and then what happened with Jesus and everything around Jesus from the first century onward. What makes it particularly complicated in the case of the New Testament is there are so many manuscripts and versions that often differ. And in my preparation for this week's class, which I had heard a lecture about a few years ago, that's why I knew about this Mary thing, this three Mary dilemma. Um, I, uh, I came to realize just how complicated it is because it's not just it's when people say they talk about a translation of the Bible, especially in the New Testament, it's not just a bunch of translators. Well, they decided that this is the version. They're choosing often between manuscripts or influenced by other books that are not necessarily part of the biblical canon. Turns out there's something that I'd heard of, but I heard a little bit more about it, something called the Gospel of Mary in the apocryphal literature of the of the New Testament, except for we don't have it exactly. There's reference to it in the church fathers. So unlike the Hebrew Bible, where there's a long distance between when the text was solidified and then interpreted, the text of the New Testament is being interpreted and is in a versatile state, a flexible state for a few hundred years, and there's a lot of influence. So I only say that to say that what we're talking about today is far from being historical in any way. That's my one and but it doesn't stop us from reading the text that we have and the text that's considered to be sacred by many. Uh, New Revised Standard Version is used in a lot of different churches, relating to that text the way that we've done until now when it comes to biblical text. But I just wanted to make that caveat because I'm feeling today a little bit less um, or a little bit more vulnerable, vulnerable than I have in the past when it comes to um, academic readiness. Yeah, okay. There's my excuse. There's my apology. And yes, Ria.
I wanted to ask you about the naming it, the New Testament, and that in archaeology it's CE, the Common Era, and there's been changes. And one of them is that we have the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Bible because of the concept of supplanting. That when you have the old and then the new supplants. So do you have any feelings about that?
Yeah, I have less emotional feelings than others people do. Some people have turned that into a real cause celeb. It's their thing. Talk about it. While I almost never use the word Old Testament, because that implies the old one that was replaced by the new one. I often use the term New Testament. I use Hebrew Bible, and I use the term New Testament because that is what it became. It became a new thing for the people basing it on something else. For them, it's new. Yeah, so it's a semantic game. It's sometimes a little bit too politically correct into that realm of wording. Um, People do relate to it as and I always use BCE and CE. So I hear what you're saying there. Um, I, Sometimes I use, and other people in my circle will use the Greek Bible. But the Greek Bible is also inexact because parts of it were in Aramaic before they were Greek, and parts of it, like some of these other apocryphal books or pseudo-epigraphical books, are in languages like Coptic and Ge'ez and Syriac. So it's also not Greek. I mean, wherever we go, I guess the issue is this what we, not you, and this is not a complaint to you, but is this what I would like to spend my time on in talking about interfaith dialogue? And so I'm not one to correct if there's a clergyman who I'm at I'm also not offended when if they're asked to give the prayer and they end the prayer with in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I've asked them to be themselves there. I'm not, I don't feel myself threatened in any way by that. So all those things are part of a world of kind of a defensiveness that oftentimes Jews come to, and sometimes very rightfully so. In my case, I don't feel threatened in any way. I don't feel challenged. So while I might use Hebrew Bible, New Testament, somebody else uses Old Testament, I don't correct them. The only people that I'll make a comment to are students of mine. If somebody is studying to be a convert or whatever, or younger people, younger even younger clergy, Christian clergy, then I'll make a comment about that. Okay, my screen is frozen, which means you're not getting me clearly. I hope. Well, I hope you are. Now it's unfrozen.
No,
Okay,
you're
so
not frozen.
all right, so Ria, that kind of answers your question. I
Mhm.
hope. Okay. All right. So here's the challenge today is that when you look on certain lists of how many Marys there are in this Greek Bible, biblical literature, in the Christian Bible, some count seven different Marys. Um, so it's kind of between the greatest number I saw is seven, the smallest number I saw is three. And almost everywhere you look, there's like this footnote that says, well, Miriam was a common name at that time in Palestine, and it is known that in Jewish families they will often name the same names, of their children. Um, Hence, say if you know a Chabad family, there's always a Menachem Mendel, there's always a Shner Zalman. There's these names that repeat. Um, Mary, of course, is Miriam. And I don't know, beyond that, but I did want to start with a challenging verse first before we get to something which is actually similar. And I have a feeling maybe I've done it with some of you before because it's a favorite text of mine. That's in the first chapter of Matthew. I'd like to take a look at, we're talking now of Mary, mother of Jesus, Mother Mary. Okay. But to show you how complicated that is, I began with a verse from John, the Gospel of John. Now, um, four gospels that we have, obviously other gospels, other books that are called the Gospel of so and so, which were not included in the canon. Not an expert at it, but of the four gospels, three are called the synoptical gospels. That's Mark and Luke and Matthew, because there's a lot in common between them. It's easy, or it's doable to make a table of three columns is doable. When it comes to John, it's too different, has a different approach in many ways. It's not just the material in how what's there and what's not there, but it's how it's presented. Each of the Gospels has their own way of emphasizing sometimes the same stories, the same scenes, but they come out different every time. And sometimes they come out the same. John is the one which is different. John is also a challenging gospel when it comes to interfaith dialogue, Jewish Christian dialogue, because it's the one that when you read it, if you were to read through from the beginning now, and some of you were part of the study group that we have with Reverend Dr. Stephen Kinney in Texas, we did the Gospel of John. It took us about 9 months, I think, or 10 months maybe, to go through it verse by verse. There's a lot of talking about the Jews and the way that I'm saying those Jews. is the way it sounds, even though maybe that wasn't the way it was written, the way it sounds, those Jews and the Jews. And so there's a tendency to see it as anti-Semitic from the beginning. There are others like Bishop Spong who see exactly the opposite. It's a Jewish man, a mystic Jewish, who is writing about a self-critical way about his own people. That doesn't affect really this verse that we're going to do right now, but just in the background. So if you can think in your minds as John is set aside, the other three, and these are bodies of literature that were written earliest towards the end of the first century and or beginning of the second century. Okay. Uh, all right, so let's take a look at, so I'm going to ask you, James, to read this first verse here, 1a. So the first section here I've divided into three sections, three Marys, and here we're doing Mary, Mother of Jesus, A, John 19.
Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus were his mother and his sisters, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home.
Okay, we're reading English translation of the Greek, so we have to be careful with the wording, right? But how many people do you see here? How many people can you count present? All right, let's do it together. We have Jesus on the cross. We've got his mother, whose name is Mary. We have his mother's sister, and the text seems to be saying, and her name is Mary, the wife of Clopas, but we'll go back to that in a second. Then we have Mary Magdalene. So that's four. And then there's a disciple as well, and the disciple whom he loves standing beside her. So it seems like there's five. The easy answer is that there's five. Other ways of reading this, again, something that I would like to look at just a moment, Rabbi Malka. That if I had the time and if I was going to really invest in this, it was to go back to the Greek and see if it's possible to read another way. For instance, it's Jesus's mother Mary, and Jesus's mother's sister, who is nameless, and then there's Mary, the wife of Clopas, and there's Mary Magdalene. So there would be four Marys here, but I'm not sure that the Greek allows for that. This is the benefit when I teach together with Steve Kinney, is that his Greek is great, right? And he's got it down. In the commentaries I looked at it, nobody seemed to think that that was a possibility, which leads me to believe that it's probably not. I'm interpreting the translation as opposed to the text itself. Another way to think of this is that because one of the challenges I think people have is what? The parents named two sisters
Right.
Mary,
Mhm.
right? Is it Mary and Mary? Well, one way around that is that it's Mary's sister-in-law, and there's commentaries, there's traditions in the early church that's why she's called sister, because she's her sister-in-law. And then the last thing we find that we saw, remember, in apocryphal literature, a very, very loose way of using the terms brother and sister, and maybe just meant good friend. So one way, and I brought this verse on purpose in the beginning to show just how hazy and how confusing this can be. So then going forward, I think that we can focus on what a particular text is talking about that particular Mary, as opposed to trying to figure out exactly how many Marys and what was the interaction between them. Today, there's a kind of a movement amongst feminist scholars, certain feminist scholars of the New Testament, and also Ria, they call themselves scholars of the New Testament. So if somebody calls themselves a scholar of the New Testament, it's I don't feel comfortable correcting them with what they're calling themselves. And one of those people is Diana Butler. Anybody help me here? Anybody know Diana Butler or something? She has two last names, Butler Ross, maybe. A very, very popular scholar that does a lot of the speaking and writing. Butler Bass, Diana Butler Bass. And there, she and another scholar, Jen, whose name I don't remember last name, they're thinking in terms of that there is really just two Marys. There's Mother Mary and there's Mary Magdalene. And we'll get to Mary Magdalene and the challenges around that beforehand. So and therefore uh, uh, and therefore we'll take away one of the other mothers in this list of three here. But right now there's still Mary, wife of Clopas, who seems to be another one. All right. Okay. Now let's get to after proving to you how difficult this is, how confusing this can be. Let's take a look at the first chapter of Malka, you wanted to say something.
I just thought this was a very female-oriented text. One, because if they said his mother's sister, usually they would say, that's not the way Hebrew would normally put it. They would say they would say the wife of her brother or something like that. They wouldn't say his mother's sister. So to say it that way seems very feminist.
Although it could be that at first they said it, yes, very feminine, mother, sister, and then a man afterwards had to add, well, she's Mary, the wife of Clopas. Had to
Oh,
once again bring it to the male orientation.
right. And
Yeah.
then, is this disciple whom he loved? Is that John? I know that was supposed to be the beloved disciple. Is that John, the author of the gospel, or is
Yeah,
that
so
another
yeah,
John?
we don't know, but many of the commentaries say it's John. Yeah, I wanted to read it one more way. There was one possibility is that when Jesus saw his mother and the disciple, meaning Mary Magdalene, and there are those that read that she's the disciple he loves so much. So
There's a
maybe
tradition about that too, that she
yeah,
was one of the disciples, right?
right. And so so Rabbi Malka is bringing up one of these things. There's traditions about these things because they're in some of Nag Hammadi, what that literature is called.
Gnostic, the
Yeah, the
Gnostica.
Gnostic literature. There's all this treasure trove of books from the first 3 centuries of these alternate traditions. Um, yeah, and then there's references to books that we don't have anymore, like this Gospel of Mary. Um, and even now they found something new, apparently in recent years, a papyrus that has new material on it. Um, so that's yeah, it's kind of the same way we have the Dead Sea Scrolls. In New Testament studies, they've got the same kind of thing, new material that comes up. Okay, so Rabbi Malka, I'm going to ask you to read from this first chapter. I'm guessing that you know it. We've done it. We do it a number of times.
Mhm.
This is a text that serves my teaching in many ways,
Mhm.
but I'm going to ask. I kind of to help. I embolden the names of women in this text. Go ahead.
Okay. Uh, Matthew chapter 1 from the beginning, an account of the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Yitzhak, and Yitzhak the father of Yaakov, and Yaakov the father of Yehuda and his brothers. And Judah the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar, and Perez the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Amram, and Amram the father of Aminadab, and Aminadab the father of Nachshon, and Nachshon the father of Salmon, and Salmon the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Oved by Ruth, and Oved the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of King David.
Okay, so we got up to a certain point, right? Because the main part of this is the only gospel that starts with this genealogy. In another gospel, there's a genealogy which is presented a little bit different, but this is the only one that looks like this. There's we're used to genealogies that have men in it. And in the Torah, when there's a genealogy or other places that has a woman in it, that says, oh, there's something special about this woman. So, for instance, in one of the genealogies in the book of Genesis, when
Mhm.
Dinah is mentioned, we happen to have a story that tells us why Dinah was mentioned. She was raped. But we also have a woman who's mentioned in Genesis. Anybody know the other woman who's mentioned for which we don't have a story in the Torah?
Mhm.
Serach, the daughter of Asher, Serach bat Asher. Now, rabbinic literature has her being this kind of wisdom woman who knows where Joseph's bones are in the Nile that have been sunk in a lead coffin. You know, she's there, and perhaps there were other stories at the time. Sometimes we have a mention of a woman where there's no other story as well, and that's Devorah Meineket Rivka, Devorah
Right.
Rivka, but we don't have a story about her, but she had to be important. Otherwise, this androcentric uh, corpus that we have that we call the TaNaKh would not exist.
All
Yeah.
these women are tainted in some way.
Oh, so now you're back to our text here. Let's start with the first one. Tamar, how is she tainted?
With her relationship with Judah.
With her father-in-law. She sleeps with her
Right,
father-in-law, right?
right.
Yeah. Now, we know from that story in Genesis 38 that she's justified. That's how the Torah presents it, because Judah is the one who sinned here, not her. Or it's all comparable. But and not only that, she's not only is she not punished, but she's rewarded. Well, maybe she is punished in the fact that her progeny is very problematic, but she's rewarded in the fact that the twins are born. That there's Peretz and Zerach, or Peretz
Right,
and Chetzro. I'm sorry, Peretz and Zerach. Yeah, Peretz and
right.
Zerach. Yeah. Okay, so you've got Tamar. So she's tainted. We're going to use tainted with air quotes. Okay, tainted. Um, the next one. Well, how is Rachav tainted?
She's a Zonah.
Yeah, she's a prostitute, right? And although there is medieval Jewish interpretation that says, "Oh no, she's just an innkeeper." Well, first of all, innkeepers, like as we all know from cowboys and westerns, that the innkeeper is also has other things in the inn, other workers in the inn besides the guy that runs the bar and the piano player. And so, but she's because her name is Zonah, and some of the medieval commentaries saw Zonah as from the word mazon, from food. But Zonah is from Znut. She's a prostitute. And that's how it's presented in the book of Joshua. And she saves the people of Israel. So she's, again, air quotes, tainted, but she's an important figure. And then how is Ruth tainted?
She's a Ger.
Not only a ger, because a lot of people could be ger, a lot of people could be foreigners, but she comes from the Moabites.
Oh, the
And there's a
Moabiyah, yeah.
specific specific prohibition in Deuteronomy for Moabites and Ammonites.
Mm.
Now, the rabbis of the Talmud, they had a keen way of getting. Anybody know how the rabbis get through that? The fact, how could she be King David's great grandmother and be a Moabite is when it says specifically in the book of Deuteronomy that you're not allowed to marry a Moabite. I mean, but this is one of the I use this as comedy, although it's not presented in the Talmud as comedy. The rabbis in the Talmud say, "Oh no, text says a Moabite, not a Moabitess." Text says you're not allowed to marry a Moavi, but not a Moaviyah, Moaviyah Zara. Well, that's a funny way to go around it, right? And yet, and the reason for the Ammonites and the Moabites that they're not married, we don't marry. There is another reason, another place, because they didn't give water and food to the Israelites. But what's wrong with the Moabites and the Ammonites as a people?
The Moabites, they come from illicit union.
Right?
Moab
From
from the
incest.
father.
Yeah,
From
from
Lot.
in,
Right,
from Lot and his two daughters. So
right.
starting to see a pattern here, right? There's sexual tainted, they're sexually tainted, whether it's incest in the family with a sister, with a daughter-in-law, whether it's a prostitute, whether it's Ruth, because by association being part of that tainted nation. And then go ahead, read the next paragraph, Malcolm.
And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah, and Solomon the father of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam the father of Abijah, and Abijah the father of Asaph, and Asaph the father of Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat the father of Joram, and Joram the father of Uzziah, and Uzziah the father of Jotham, and Jotham the father of Ahaz, and Ahaz the father of Hezekiah, and Hezekiah the father of Menashe, and Menashe the father of Amos, and Amos the father of Josiah, and Josiah the father of Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the deportation to Babylon.
Right, you can see this is divided. There's a pattern of 14,
Mhm.
14. That's not our issue today. But no, there's only one woman mentioned here, and she's not mentioned by name, but who is she, of course?
Uriah, she was the wife that
Right.
King David had murder Uriah.
Right. And which tells, well, her name, of course, is Bathsheba, Bathsheba.
Yeah.
And of course, why is she called here wife of what? Why do you think the gospel doesn't name her by her name and calls
Because
her
it
by?
shows you the incidents, what happens, what was the real relationship with Bathsheba and Uriah.
Right. It's exact and that in male-oriented culture is the epitome of sexual transgression, sleeping with another man's wife. More, I think, than incest. I think
Mhm.
and maybe that's why that's emphasized here. Okay, so we've got here four women, and I will save us reading through the whole thing. Trust me, but no, maybe it's important to read. Go ahead, keep reading.
And after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Salathiel, and Salathiel the father of Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel the father of Abihud, and Abihud the father of Elikam, and Elikam the father of Azor, and Azor the father of Zadok, and Zadok the father of Achim, and Achim the father of Elihud, and Elihud the father of Eleazar, and Eleazar the father of Matan, and Matan the father of Yaakov, and Yaakov the father of Yosef, the husband of Mary, who bore Jesus, who is called the Messiah.
Great. Um, I think that yeah, I think that we don't have to do the other part, right? No, we should. We
That's a
will. Yeah,
question.
no, we will continue. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Let's take
And
a
the
break. Go
first,
ahead.
in Matthew 1, the first part with all the women that are named that are tainted and sexually tainted in some way, do you think that was a kind of apologetic for Mary? I know there's questions about whether she was married, not married. Is that put there? All these women were instrumental in Jewish history, and they were important women. So you think in some way that's an apologetic for that?
I think so. Yeah, this is kind of why I brought it, right? Now, it would be interesting to hear from my clergy friend or from Christian New Testament teachers how they see that as well. I know this from Yair Zakovich, right? From my Bible professor at Hebrew University, in talking about the characteristics of women in general. Many women who are lifted up. When are women lifted up in the text or not? So this is an example of women that are lifted up. Well, you might say it because the text is proud. Look at them; they persevered. They made it
Mm.
beyond. But it's also to quell any kind of and so what if there's rumors about Mary, right? If it if she's not exactly a virgin or if the birth came from some other father, whatever. It's a gray area, right? And yeah, yes, that's most
Well,
definitely.
the Talmud, when don't they say, I forgot his name, Pentire or whatever his name is in the Talmud, they say. I mean, it's a slur in the Talmud when they
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about.
There's a character in the Talmud who people think to be of Jesus. So that brings us to an area that needs a whole other preparation for. There's the literature of arguments between Judaism and Christianity that started in the Talmud already and come to a head in what we call it the Sifuta Vikuchim in
Mm,
medieval history. But I think I want to stick with Mary, how the New Testament presents Mary here, and I think that what you just brought up before Rabbi Malka is definitely a possibility of the simple meaning of the text, the pshat. There, yes, in order to quell some of the rumors or to say, and even if it's true, look what we have in our background. Each
mm.
of these women, they brought about some redemption of some sort of salvation. Okay. Megan, you want to continue?
So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the Messiah, 14 generations.
I'm going to ask that we skip over the 14 generation thing. Okay.
Mm.
Go on. Keep
I
reading.
want to keep focused on Mary. Now I want to focus on Mary and what we learn
Now
about her
the,
as a person.
now the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be pregnant from the Holy Spirit. Her husband Joseph, being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to divorce her quietly. But just when he had resolved to do this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. Look, the virgin shall become pregnant and give birth to a son. And they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took her as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had given birth to a son, and he named him Jesus.
Okay.
Hmm.
So let's get some reactions from this last section and the whole section. What are people thinking?
Did the angel tell Mary to call him Jesus? Do I remember? It says here Joseph called him Jesus. So
Right. So what you remember is from another passage that we did last week that is John's mother. No, I'm forgetting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um, Elizabeth. John's mother,
Yeah.
Elizabeth, and they hung out together. So there's some overlapping between last week's text
Right.
and this week's text. Yeah. And we're gonna get to that in a second as well. Yes, go ahead, Ria.
Yeah, so also that there's often in the Christian writings the predictions of various important events occur in the prophets and according to their analysis. So this is again that they read into, and what I had learned was that the word virgin was actually the Hebrew word meant young woman, but I
It's
don't know
Alma.
if
Alma.
is
Yeah, Alma with an yeah. So this is a quote from Isaiah, and in general, the writers of the Gospels are looking to the New Testament in this way, which is why it interested me early on, already before I was involved in interfaith dialogue, as another form of midrash. This is the same thing the rabbis do in midrash, except for these guys are earlier, and they're from the same circles. Right? The writers of the Gospels are from the same circles of the rabbis that are writing these things. Now, they may stray away with their beliefs about Jesus, whether at different times, it took a long time to develop Jesus as Son of God, Jesus as Messiah, Jesus as part of God, Trinity. All those things took hundreds of years to develop in different ways. But the anchoring of the belief in the text is extremely rabbinic, extremely Jewish in its way. So to me, that's an interesting thing on its own. In the same way that I'll look at Philo, who also uses the biblical text to talk about all sorts of philosophical issues in a way that's very different than the rabbis, but from a phenomenological point of view, it's using the biblical text as an anchor for wisdom, an anchor for what's truth. Yeah. So
Rabbi,
yeah,
don't you think the Peshat of that text, they're talking about King Ahaz and his wife, right? When a young woman will conceive and bear a child, when taken from Isaiah, isn't that King Ahaz? And they're just doing like you said, in a biblical midrash.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it becomes interbiblical once this becomes part of the Bible, right?
Right.
Yeah. But yes, yeah. And so and this the structuring of the teaching this way, when Rabbi Marsha asked me to do New Testament, I said, let's do apocryphal first. Part of my pedagogical thinking for you folks is that to see that's what the writers were doing before the New Testament as well. We saw that in women who were imitating or were made to be presented in terms of older well-known women from the TaNaKh. Ria, did you want to say something else, or is that the same hand? Okay.
How did he get to be from Parthenos in Greek to Alma, from Alma to Parthenos, virgin?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, these are my limitations, Ria, in this, and Malka, in this particular class. Whereas you can ask that kind of a question when we're doing Proverbs, and I'll probably have an answer, but I'm just more limited in the time that I can put into this particular course. So the truth is, I'm also less interested right now in how we decide. That the text here is clear, though. Whatever we decide was history, that there was a woman who got pregnant, this is how they cover it up, which is a typical Jewish way, and apparently not just a Jewish way, otherwise we wouldn't have this whole, well, no, maybe the introduction was made for Jews. Matthew, by the way, is, to my mind, has, and I haven't checked this, but it feels like to me Matthew has more commonality with rabbinic literature than the other Gospels. And perhaps if I could dare to say, because Matthew is learning and teaching and speaking amongst these Jewish folks, this was something that people were saying. Oh, how could you believe? It's a case of she got somebody else slept with her before they were married. By the way, the process in rabbinic times was a more or less a year between the betrothal and the actual wedding. And during that time, this is a assumption in the Torah as well. During that time, once the woman is betrothed, then she has the law of a married woman from a sexual point of view. So the fact that they haven't what we call consummation of the wedding, having sex, that doesn't matter. If another man takes her during that time, then they're both put to death. So it feels like, yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, him telling that it's a little bit like the Rebecca story, where there's the rumbling in her stomach, and so there'll be two nations inside of you. And it is the way he's talking to Joseph, that she's pregnant, and there's something special about this.
Yeah. It also justifies, of course, the fact that he thinks that she's had an affair.
Right.
Right. This is the way. No, this is all from God. And I don't present this to laugh at this in any way. I want to make that clear. I'm not being facetious. When I was younger and I was still a little bit more in my Orthodox mind, I was facetious about this. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh right. Oh yeah. Yes, of course she's a virgin. I don't do that. That's not my purpose here at all. My purpose is to try to understand, and there's lots of literature about this. How do we understand the virgin birth and whatever? Again, I'm not an expert, but these are interesting things from a woman's point of view. And that this introduces a new chapter in women's study. I don't mean now in 2026, but in this chapter, whenever it was published, a new kind of a chapter about, so what do we think of women in this way, the ones that perhaps were living on the edge, and what is the potential, and not only to give birth to as the first giving birth to the Son of God. What does that mean as her stature as far as the mother of God? If God if Christ is the Son of God, Adonai, then maybe Mary is another side of that. Oh, that's early feminism, Christian feminism as well in the 50s, 60s, I think, where,
Well,
anyway,
what does that say about Hashem having a consort then?
I think that's the way that the early wave of feminism, of Christian study feminism, spoke of that in a way of that being a possibility in what was beforehand. So it's not, yeah, yes, something that in feminist views was pushed aside, was depressed. Okay, I'm in territory I don't know too much about right now. So let's take a step back again and look at this angelic decree from a different aspect. If you would, we're talking about Mother Mary, right? Mary the Mother. Eileen, if you could go from C.
In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary, and he came to her and said, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was much perplexed by his words and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. The angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And now you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will name him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give him the throne of his ancestor David. He will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end." Mary said to the angel, "How can this be, since I am a virgin?" The angel said to her, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore, the child to be born will be holy. He will be called Son of God. And now your relative Elizabeth, in her old age, has also conceived a son. And this is the 6th month for her, who has said to be barren. For nothing will be impossible with God." Then Mary said, "Here I am, the servant of God. Let it be with me according to your word." And then the angel departed from her.
Right. And then the text goes on. There's three dots. We did that last week, actually. That's that text between Elizabeth, that friendship, that kinship that Elizabeth and Mary have, and standing close to her, and Elizabeth feels that her womb is rumbling, is dancing with joy at Jesus's mother's presence. Um, and then this prayer go on, Eileen, this prayer that tells us something about the same way that we had the prayers that told us were written for Esther to tell us about Esther, or the prayer of one of the other multiple prayers we did that were stuck in for the women that were written about by men in the apocryphal period. Go ahead.
And Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has looked with favor on the lowly state of his servant. Surely from now on all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. Indeed, his mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He has come to the aid of his child Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham, and to his descendants forever."
So what do we learn about Mary's thoughts, Mary's prayer? From Mary's prayer, what do we learn about her inner thinking, her inner feelings?
It to me sounds that it's very Jewish. She's going to have somebody, she's going to have it's a midrash. I'm beginning to see it more as a midrash that sort of comes alive in a different story than our story, that instead of being talked about having a baby out of wedlock, she's going to save Israel.
No less.
No less, yeah.
And,
And she will be blessed among all. And it's from a feminine point of view, which is different.
okay. What, other than the fact that a woman is saying, is there something that's particularly feminine here that we wouldn't see in a male prayer? That's an honest question. I don't know that there isn't, but you are right, of course. The fact that it's in the mouth of a woman makes it a feminist viewpoint. Is there a huge difference between this and a prayer that would be Esther's prayer? Ria?
So I see it as the way the prophets spoke. but I don't know about the translation or anything. But that if you amend your what you've been doing, and all this wonderful stuff will happen. And so she's put this in that kind of a text, maybe.
Mhm.
Well, it seems like she's nurturing the oppressed.
It does seem like that in 54, 55, 50. Yeah, the mercy.
Right. There it
Good.
almost that makes it more feminine. I think there's
Uh-huh.
a nurturing aspect to it that good things will happen to those who are hurting.
Hold on just a second, Sasha.
Is it anything on with the shop Miriam?
So Sister Sasha's asking if there's any reflection here of you mean Shirat Hayam? Right, of the Song of the Sea, which many people call Song of Miriam, although it's not presented as Miriam's song is very limited to a one-liner at the end of it. But you mean the whole Song of the Sea. There's certainly elements, as God is doing the fighting for us. Except for here, it's look in 49, for the mighty one has done great things for me. The verse before that, surely for now and all generations will call me blessed. There's an I-ness to this. This is less of a communal prayer than a personal prayer. A personal prayer who sees yourself in the center of salvation for the people. So to me, this is an important passage for us to think in terms of Mother Mary.
This could be in Tehillim.
Yeah.
It seems like it could fit right in.
Yeah, and I guess an interesting thing would be to go through this
Find the
and look for
parallel.
all the reflection, all the echoes of Tehillim here. Tehillim 130, I see. Yeah. Okay.
I know this is a famous passage in Christianity. It's what I think
Right.
is called the Magnificat.
Magnificat, yeah.
Mhm.
Magnificat, yeah. In lots of different Taizé chanting as well. There's the in classical Christian music also. This one's Magnificat, yeah. Yeah, important. And so that in itself is important, the fact that such a central prayer in the church is given by a woman. I interrupted you. You want to say something else?
Oh no, no.
I
Okay.
I
Yes,
wanted to say
Megan.
it's also written by a man.
Yeah. But
So it's
other than the fact that you
interesting
know
to
that, is there something that comes up in the text that you can see that it's a man writing it?
um I'd have to really think about it, but it's
Okay.
interesting how magnified and glorified and all of that she is,
Yeah.
written from the standpoint of a man or from a
Yeah.
man's psychology.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
it's also mother for a man, which has always been important. So, uh,
Says the therapist. Yeah.
yeah,
Wonder how this would compare with the prayer of Hannah.
A good homework assignment for you. Okay, let's take a look at Susan, you want to read D, this last section? This is already out of the Gospels. This is from what's often considered to be an extended Gospel of Luke. Luke is considered to be the author of Acts. Acts is the story of Paul and Paul spreading this new version of Judaism to the world beyond the Holy Land. But this is in the beginning where they kind of get together after Jesus' death in the temple. Go ahead.
Then they returned to Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath day's journey away. When they had entered the city, they went to the room upstairs where they were staying. Peter and John and James and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James, son of Alphaeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas, son of James. All these were constantly devoting themselves to prayer, together with certain women, including Mary, the mother of Jesus, as well as his brothers.
Okay, what do we learn from this?
The 10.
They're doing yes.
Oh, so they had it making a minion to say Kaddish. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's one possibility, but this is the next generation. This is what happens after Jesus died. Jesus leaves this world after the and what's going to happen in with this new understanding of Judaism. And that's what the book of Acts is about. But it's noteworthy that it's not just a bunch of guys as it usually is.
Right.
The mother Mary, she's still there. She's still part of it, whether she's their mother as well, whether she's there to make the coffee and the cookies. Well, it doesn't say that, she could, and there are lots of traditions in the early church writings that she is a leader unto herself as well. Right? She's not just subservient to being the mother of Jesus
Mm.
or the bearer of Jesus. But she's just not it's not just the vessel. She has a task afterwards, which also comes out that first thing that we did. She was there during at the cross, according to that tradition. Here, she's part of the newly this new church in formation.
And she's praying with them.
Yeah.
And where's Joseph?
Don't know, because it seems that his importance is mostly to give some sort of a framework for her being, I don't know,
Because he's not at the cross.
yeah, you're right. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. He exists only to be Mary's husband, I guess.
He's not at Jesus when he comes to the temple when he recites from Isaiah in the temple. He's not there either. It seems like it's kind of a bar mitzvah for Jesus, but he is not mentioned.
Could he have passed away?
I don't know, but the point of the matter is in the version that we have. Oh, if you're asking, does it say that he passed away in the book? I don't think so.
No.
But the version that we have of these traditions doesn't have him, which is noteworthy because, she, whatever it is, Miriam's the one who's outshined.
Is this Judas, the same Judas that
No.
gave him up? Okay.
No, this is a different one. Yeah. That one is Iscariot. Okay. So let's go on to Mary Magdalene. I think we can try to finish this here. So Magdalene, for centuries, people thought that her name is Mary Magdalene because she comes from a place called Migdal. Migdal is important now because the synagogue, ancient synagogue is on show. It was discovered a while ago, but it's been renovated. It's there. It's not far from the Kinneret, from the Sea of Galilee. And maybe, except for then people were able to show that she's really from Bethany. And that brings her to the area of where Lazarus in that story. And we'll see that in a second. Now, at least these feminist scholars who I was studying in the last few days seem to talk about, for them, it's obvious that she is Mary Magdalene from the word Migdal, as in tower. She's the towering one. She's we would say she's a lighthouse figure. She in herself, she has it. So this is not Mother Mary. It's a different Mother Mary, who is she's well. Let's see. Let's take a look at the text and see. Ria, why don't you read for us Luke 8:1-3?
Oops, okay. Soon after, it's entitled Healing and Support.
Yeah, that's
Soon
just my title. That doesn't mean anything. That's just, yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to leave it out.
Yeah,
Okay. Soon afterward, he went on through one town and village after another, proclaiming and bringing the good news of the kingdom of God. The 12 were with him, as well as some women who had been cured of evil spirits and infirmities. Mary, called Magdalene, for whom 7 demons had gone out, and Jonah, the wife of Herod's steward Chusa, and Susanna, and many others who had ministered to them out of their own resources. But Mary stood weeping
hold
out.
on. No.
Okay.
That's another passage. So let's just take a look at this. What do we learn from her here? She's a supporter along with other women. So Jesus had these women. He had the woman's auxiliary. It was the sisterhood making kiddush for him and stuff, and washing his talis or whatever. I'm being facetious, okay? But there's that part. But also, she and others had been healed, and she'd been
Yeah,
healed from
yeah.
seven demons. I don't know that we have any more expansion on this seven demon kind of a thing, but it does remind me of Asmodeus, who made sure that the woman in Tobit, Sarah of the book of Tobit, her seven husbands died before they even had, but that's just by coincidence, I think, because it's a typological number, seven. Okay, so there's a relationship between them that is not just she's serving him, but also I think we're led to understand because she's been healed by him. She understands what his power is, what Jesus' power is. So go on now. Now we go from the
Rabbi,
gospel. Yes.
they talk about the women Jonah and Suzanne. These were also women who kind of like were hierarchies, I believe, in like the Roman government, or their husbands were, but they themselves really appreciated what they kind of like joined Jesus, or at least support him financially, that group.
Right. Good point.
So
Very good point.
he
They're from
appealed
the
to a lot of
yeah,
women at
they're
that
from the
time.
establishment. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's good.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and the other at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." Turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni." Rabboni. Oh, okay, teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not touch me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I've seen the Lord." And she told them that he had said these things to her.
Okay.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
interesting. The Gospel of John is the one that has women close to this whole thing. We started with that passage around the cross. Mary's
I-
there as well. And but
Is
that's
this,
not
yeah,
in the
yeah.
other Gospels. I'm
I
sorry.
was
Go
going
ahead.
to, is this written in any other writings during that
No,
period?
no, 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 no. That's just it. So this is how
Wow.
this is one of the many things that John is very different than the other three, what we call synoptic gospels. And in this case, Mary Magdalene plays a major role. It's a role. She's with him at the end. Then when they bury him, she's the one who's going to, when they take him down, she's the one who wants to bury him, but you can't find the body. And she doesn't, she's concerned with doing him chesed in making sure he's buried, not one of the men, one of the women, right? That's a extraordinary thing into itself.
She's the Hever Kadisha.
Yeah, yeah, and then she sees the guy, she sees him, thinks he's one of the grave diggers, right? He's a gardener,
Right, right.
and
So,
and
so the thing is that um, she's the witness,
the
what
first
you would
witness,
call the role that she has
yeah,
as a
absolutely,
witness.
yeah. Now she says to him, Rabboni, and that parentheses that's in the text that we have, the transmitted text, but Rabboni could mean teacher, but it could also just mean master, right? Ribono shel olam, Riboni, but it could also be a version, whether it means rabbi, teacher, or master. The truth is, it's all the same. Uh, I think it comes from all the same. But and then she spreads the word to everybody else.
Is she the one who's supposedly a prostitute?
Okay, so there is a tradition of her being a prostitute, but that's not in the New Testament itself.
I
Those
think
are
Oh,
that came
those
from
are
Pope Gregory.
yeah, those are
He
those are
put them
later
together.
traditions.
Yeah.
And I think that's 6th century.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
oh,
so that's real. So isn't that interesting, Ria, that you would know something like that because that's what's in culture, Western culture, and it's a way of demoting. These are the different ways that the women were put down and demoted. I think by saying, I think that's as
oh.
opposed to
He-
the fact that she may have very well been. This is what these feminist scholars are saying. She was a leader. Her name says she was a leader. She was Mary the leader, Magdalene. Yes, Malka.
Pope Gregory, in a sermon that he gave in the 6th century, he put it together because in one passage it talks about Mary being healed of demons, and then the next passage it has this. So he put together that the prostitute was healed of demons, and this passage comes next. He put it together that Mary Magdalene must have been a prostitute.
There you go. All right,
Oh.
great. Well, thank you. Thanks for that.
So is he the one that made the Pope become infallible?
No, that was in the 19th century. I forgot the Pope's name, but that was the latter part of
Oh,
the 19th century where the doctrine of infallibility came.
See, this is way
okay.
above my pay grade, guys. Way above my pay grade.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think we can finish this off. If people will stick with
Okay.
us another 5 minutes. Uh, uh, who do we have? Who would like to read? Hasn't read anybody? Um, no, any volunteer to read? Three. Now we're going to Mary of Bethany, who is the sister, a friend of Jesus, but also sister of Lazarus. Lazarus is the one who pops back up again. James, want to go ahead?
Okay. Now, as they went on their way, she entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him. She had a sister named Mary who sat at Jesus' feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and asked, Lord, do you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things, but few things are needed. Indeed, only one. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her.
And we could spend a lot of time trying to unpack that. What does that mean exactly? We understand that Martha is there to compare, to Mary, right? That's how we're going to learn more about Mary or Martha for that matter. Does this mean that nobody has to do the work? But we understand Martha's character, Martha being from the world where women do all those kinds of things, and Mary, how come you're sitting in with the guys all the time? And Rabbi, tell her she's got to help me make the cookies and spread out the kitty, right? Um, okay. And why don't you read the second one uh, from John? And remember, John is the one who seems to favor women characters, bring women characters in more than the other gospels. Go ahead.
6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. There they gave him a dinner for him. Martha served, and Lazarus was the one of those reclining with him. Mary
Pound.
took a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard, anointed Jesus' feet, and wiped them with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, the one who was about to betray him, said, Why was this perfume not sold for 300 ducats and the money given to the poor? He said that this is not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. He kept the common purse and used to steal what was put into it. Jesus says, Leave her alone. She bought it so that she might keep it for the day of my burial. You always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me.
Okay. So once again, you've got the Mary and Martha dynamic. But in this case, teaching us about Mary perhaps being too uppity and doing what she wants, not doing woman's work, but being next to Jesus. This little story with Judas Iscariot, who you understand, James, is the Judas you were referring to beforehand, right? Is brought in to say, oh, she's wasteful. She's not working with Martha. She's wasteful. And then Jesus once again standing up for her, and basically saying to the people, you know what? She's my disciple more than you are, at least in this case, I think. So a little bit about three Marys. There's other Marys that are mentioned. It's not clear who they're talking about. Um, Again, this is just a drop in the bucket, but I think it's good for us to attune ourselves to this kind of issue when we want to talk about a gender, more of a gender equity in reality. We have to ask ourselves, well, where does the gender inequity come from? Are we born with it, or are we raised, or or is this something we get from our education? And obviously, I think we all agree we get it. Well, it could be both, but it's certain we get it from our education. And then, so what do we do to undo it? How do we go back? This is the key to all a feminist approach or queer approaches to ancient sacred texts. How do we go back and look at it with a more critical eye? And then also, how do we do midrash today in a way that will empower young women? Is this case where how and this would if this was a longer course, I would have my colleague Jesse, a lovely Episcopal priest, the husband and wife team, and I would this is something we should hear from her, right? Not from a man, not from me, right? Something that how does a Christian scholar, a feminist woman, how does she teach children? How does she encourage young women to get their inspiration from this, as opposed to all those texts that are misogynistic, or all those texts where a woman's voice is not heard at all? Okay. Yes, Ria.
I just want to put a plug in for the women's commentary of of the Bible of Torah, and that's how you get pull out women's voices from the text. And I think I don't know Christian writings, and so I don't know if they have stuff like that. But for us, I think the women's commentary on the Torah has been a really good thing to open up the discussion and open up our view.
Mhm. And you may know that one of the editors and women that made that publication possible recently died, recently passed away. Rabbi Andrea Weiss, who I had the privilege of working with a long time ago when she was just out of rabbinical school. And then we met her after many decades when she was the one who ordained our daughter Debbie in Jerusalem at HUC. And so she tragically passed away just a month ago or so. She was instrumental in publishing that particular woman's commentary that you're referring to. So thank you for that, Ria. Okay, so thanks for being here, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.